It's time for our talk with Jyll Bradley, who is connecting now. Hi, Jyll.
Hello. Hey. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Now,
we're
going to do things a bit differently today because even though it looks nice and sunny, it is nice and sunny.
It does.
But it's actually
nice and sunny.
It's very changeable. It's been blowing a gale and raining up to about 10 seconds ago. So I thought we'd do a little view of the works, and then I'm going to sit in the car so that we can talk without the rain and the cold.
Sounds good.
I thought this is interesting because I came out here just now and someone has laid an egg. This doesn't happen very often. Outside, next to where Michaela's work is, although they can't see it from this side, they can hear it, and basking in the glow.
Wow.
Of out/in. So this is one of your installations here.
I'm honoured.
So there's one work here, and then there was a slight issue with the first one that we put up, which was on this hen house. So I need to talk to you about that. So unfortunately, that's not on display at the moment. And the next one is on the outside of Frisbee's house. That's looking beautiful. Frisbee, because of the weather situation, is the door is closed, and so that the work is here by the entrance.
Excellent.
But so what I'll do, because it's I think you can see that. You see the trees.
Oh gosh, yes. It's very windy in London, I have to say, but there's no sun at all.
It's very windy, but so I'm going to go into the car. Some of you will be familiar with that.
Good plan.
Location from previous videos, and then we can talk properly.
It's going very quickly.
I'm running.
Are you running?
Yeah. Let's see if I can balance it. Oh, it's
very good.
It's quite a good place. Right. Jyll, hello.
Hello. How wonderful.
So tell me, we've just seen these works. They're called Out/in.
Indeed.
Could you, tell me, how do you go about responding to a site-specific commission, and did you approach this in a similar way as you might work in a private home or a gallery or outdoor space?
Yeah, I approached it exactly how I would any artwork. So obviously I've never been to your lovely farm, but I was very interested in the idea of the chickens' shelter and the fact that they have to have a shelter, but they also need to go in and out. They need the outside. And I was thinking about our situation right now. Obviously, in lockdown, most of us are sort of locked down. We have kind of limited going outside. And the chickens they have a bit more freedom than we have. So I kind of was thinking about that connection between the inside and the outside, and the free to roam of the chickens. And also, we take so much for granted, our shelter, and you provide shelter for your chickens. And I thought it would be really nice to kind of honour the shelter that the chickens have and create a kind of a talisman or a kind of mark that sort of indicates the specialness of that shelter, how important it is to them.
And being placed on the entranceway, like between the inside and outside.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's very important. So it's a kind of a liminal thing there, going in and out.
Liminal.
And it's something
liminal,
that means,
Rebecca were talking about. What does that mean?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like
it means
fresh, it's sort of on the cusp of something. Is that right?
It means kind of in between things.
Right.
It's sort of you're in between one state and another. So it's sort of an entrance way, a portal, if you like, from one domain to another.
Right.
So, and it's a very, it's using the kind of materiality that I use a lot in my work, which is something very, very modern and quite anonymous, which is the green plexi, paired with something that's quite natural, which is the kind of wood. And this is really, and the other attraction for doing something in your show is that I grew up just down the road from where you are, and I've always had this incredible connection with Kent, and have long kind of wanted to try and connect the different materialities of my life in a way through my work, and this sort of symbolises this connection between something quite urban, which is the green, and then this connection with the wood, and it's sort of this grafting of the urban life that I lead, but the rural life that's also very much part of who I am.
Yeah.
So so it's wonderful to make something on a farm, because I'm really interested in farm structures and the kind of work it takes to grow something, or to make something, or to keep something alive.
Yeah. Well, I think there's also, I mean, if we talk about the kind of the shape of it, or the structure, like you say, about farm structures, there's definitely links between. Well, I think there's a few things I thought of. So there's the being placed at an angle. There's the slash in the title of the work, and that's the same in like a few of your works, like Green Light and Dutch Light, and that's also sort of carried through in the position. And then I thought of Dutch Light being almost propped up in that, against the wall or something in the ground, and that's like a really common thing here, to make a makeshift shelter, to just lay something in a triangle so that the goats will go under it or something like that. So
I mean, that's just so relevant. It's just, that's exactly what I'm interested in, is that sort of genius, very simple human ability to make quite a minimal structure that immediately creates some kind of shelter. So in a lot of my work, the big works like the Working Folks in Green Light or Dutch Light, I'm very interested in this idea of how much structure do you actually need in order to feel sheltered. Because I think most people who've been inside Green Light or inside Dutch Light, they definitely know when they're in it, and they know when they're not in it. And I'm very interested in that idea of permeability, but at the same time feeling sheltered or enclosed. How much of that do you need in order to feel that you're inside something or not inside something?
So physically covered.
Yeah, exactly.
So what does
sorry.
No,
go on. I was just going to say how important, down the road I grew up in Maidstone, and at the bottom of the garden we have this very small greenhouse, and actually I always say I kind of grew up in that greenhouse, and it's that kind of very minimal structure that is also transparent. It has this permeability, and that's had a big impact on pretty much everything I've been doing the last few years. So it all links to.
Yeah, and there's something about also this. It's, as you say, like this modern material and quite just sort of almost minimalistic, sculptural, shiny, fluorescent kind of feeling, and then that's not something often that's associated with kind of personal autobiography, but you're very keen that those things are melded.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's taken quite a long time to sort of, it's about how do you graft different aspects of yourself together. I mean, I grew up in Kent, I have this profound kind of mystical childhood connection with nature, with farming, the natural world. And then I came to London when I was 18, and I was immediately so excited by being an urban person. But now as I've got older, it's how do you bring those aspects of self together? It's a kind of metaphysical, kind of spiritual question in a way. So those two materials, the plexi actually and the wood, are actually quite physically quite difficult to bring together because they react, they behave differently. Plexi, when it heats up, it expands. Wood cracks. So it's sort of, you need a lot of skill and work to try and work out how to bring those sides together. But that's also about how the work you take on yourself to bring aspects of yourself together. I'm getting a bit psychological here, but it's kind of. But I wanted to ask you about how the how the chickens responded to the work, and also how do you go about knowing how much shelter that a chicken needs? Like, does the shelter change in winter, for instance? Do you cover it with felt or something?
Yeah. So the first part, in terms of sort of response, well, you saw the egg, so that we could take.
I'm really flattered about that.
I mean, I got to admit we've had some damage to the third one, and that wasn't a chicken; it was a goat, and the goat took a liking to it and has sort of
devoured it.
Yes.
Okay.
So we need to get our conservation department onto that one.
Yeah. I think there'll be an insurance claim there.
Yeah. But yeah. So and then actually we don't have an evaluation process, so we're not surveying or anything like that because.
Oh right.
We don't.
No audience, like you're not like
no, not really.
asking loads of questions for the audience there.
No, because it's not like we're using public money. There's no mental kind of evaluation process to go through. And
apart from the chickens, they must be evaluating as you go along.
What do you mean? Like they would be
the chickens should be evaluating the exhibition because it's for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They might well have an idea about it, but as the organizer, I'm taking a sort of hands-off approach to audience development because I feel like we don't have to. Like when it becomes more of a thing that we're answerable to someone else, then maybe we'll have to. But for now on, we'll enjoy the freedom to present something without any expectations having to be met or quotas or anything like that. But then in terms of shelter and the chickens, it does change. It's a shame Rebecca's not in the car with me because she's much more of the chicken expert. But as you know, like we've got separate houses, so when a chicken is broody and is sitting on eggs, they like to be alone. And then when the chicks hatch, again they want to be alone, otherwise they get kind of pecked at, and they just love to kind of sort of sit in the quiet, and Frisbee will happily sit on that nest for hours and hours and hours and hours, only getting up briefly to eat and go back and sit down. So it's very much a labour of intense concentration and sort of a spirit. I think that is where there's also a linkage between kind of meditation. Like if you think of like a chicken sat on the nest,
yes,
and that kind of intense focus on her offspring is quite amazing, really. And then for kind of physical protection, there's rain. We put a rain cover over the run, and you know, it's protecting from foxes and other kind of predators. Get hedgehog attacks. That's happened.
God, the hedgehog attacks the coop?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm.
Wow.
not when we had house sitters here when we were away, and they were they were sort of really, there's like terrible noise, and I think they possibly were excited to see a hedgehog, and then they realised that the hedgehog was sort of
actually quite vicious.
Yeah, being vicious.
Yeah,
like he caught a young bird. So that's quite interesting. So yeah, you're building up to for them because they're pretty defenceless creatures, really.
But it's interesting, these rural structures that hold so much meaning, because when I was a kid, it felt like there was you were much more in touch with the vagaries of how the climate would affect people's lives. So, a lot of the kids I went to school with were children of farmers, and all the structures that they were around. There's something sort of very practical about, say, a hop garden structure, a structure that I've used in my work. It's developed through centuries of people working out how much light you need to bring to a hop in order for it to grow.
Yeah.
And because you attach so much need and hope to that structure, because it's something that you survive on for your economy, it kind of develops a kind of mystical quality to it. So I've always thought of some of the Kentish structures, for me, have got this incredible spiritual, mystical quality, like the hop garden, the Oast House, for instance.
Yeah, the Oast Houses are like spiders, aren't they?
They're just extraordinary. And they've also got this kind of anthropomorphic quality. In fact, if you've got more than one Oast House together, they're actually called a herd.
Right.
So So I went to actually talk to some Oast House makers a while ago about something else. And I think that's something that's very important in my work, actually, is how quite minimal structures acquire mystical qualities, because we need them, and they're to do, but it's also to do with work. So these are working structures. They're not just abstractions in the landscape. They're like real things that we need in order to survive. So that's why the coop interested me for that reason as well. It's practical, and yet it's got this mystical quality, because the chicken needs it to sit on the eggs. And but you must have some Oast houses around you.
Oh yeah,
right?
loads.
Yeah,
and they're designed for the air to flow up and dry the hops, and that also it reminded me of what I don't know if you saw the conversation with Rita Evans 2 days ago, and her work, which is sort of musical instruments, but with a sort of plumbing, heating kind of system, and talking about heat. And I was saying how chickens regulate heat very efficiently to keep the... it's like a nightmare to artificially hatch an egg in an incubator, because controlling the temperature is so important. And a chicken has the perfect temperature.
That's interesting.
And so... Yeah, where was I going with that? I think just to draw that in. Yeah, so it's with the Oast House and that structure being developed and getting the airflow and the heat right and the drying out. But here we're a lot more makeshift, and we're learning things as we go along. So it's a bit more, find whatever sheeting has been left behind to cover something over, and what can we use 2 bits of wood to screw together to make a lock for a door or something like that. And I'm sure if it evolved, it would become something that was half decent, but it's not at the moment. But that's good too. It's another aspect of it, isn't it?
Well, my dad had he was sort of post-war. Well, he was actually served in the Second World War. And nothing was ever thrown away. So our greenhouse was like kind of tacked together with bits of thing that, was available. And I still have the meat skewer that he used to use to keep the door closed.
Wow.
So but now that skewer's got like this incredible kind of power in my life. It just feels like, wow, kind of thing that never you would never think would be associated with a greenhouse. It's very interesting.
Just to bring it back to the works again, specifically, and their form, because they're very simple things, two pieces together. But that light has such a, I say, like a sort of mystic force. It's got that edge which is so pin sharp with light, and that's again in a lot of your work. Can you talk a bit about that? And the idea of light without artificial, it's not artificial light, but it seems to glow.
Yeah, it's called edge-lit plexi. I first used it in the piece in Focus and Triennial, and it's actually called light gathering sheet. So the sun or the light gathers within the material, and the edge sort of pushes out the light. And I call the edges kind of zip of light. And it's very much, I see it as a kind of quite a personal life force. It's very much feel like it's me kind of pushing forward somehow, or but doing it in a way that's also quite condensed, and it has structure to it. I'm very interested in, as you know, structure. So with the pieces that I've made for you and other works, what happens is that I've combined that sip of green with a kind of well of wood. So what happens is that when the sun shines from an angle, you trap this green light within the kind of well of that piece, and so it's almost like the light creates this third dimension in interplaying with the wood. So you need, I think the thing is, you need both of those. I need both of those sides of myself to exist. I need the kind of very contemporary, I'm in this world, and then this thing of grafting the organic to it. So I think it's also like putting them on the doors or on the coops. It's kind of wants to sort of create a conversation between the coops. So they've each got their kind of like little zip, and it sort of like connects them all. There's something about the community that you've got there with your chickens and geese. Who knows what goes on, and I'm sure I don't know, just something very communal about it as well.
You just cut out. I think there's something that's slightly weird going on with the...
am I still here?
You are still there, slightly out of sync, very strange. But could you just say that last thing? You were talking about the movement between the coops.
Okay, so there's something about the community of the coops. There's 3 coops, and then the community of the chickens. So there's something about a kind of beacon connecting them all. Yeah. Somehow. Yeah. Subliminally.
Well, it really does stand out. I mean, you can be at one and you look across, and this tiny sliver just has such an impact. So, it's really effective. And if that third one, when that third one gets it's like when that kid jumped on the Donald Judd at Tate Modern. It's like
climbing up.
I guess.
I know what I wanted to say. I did want to say I'm actually wearing, in honour of this, I'm wearing an agricultural worker's tunic.
Like
vintage.
Yes.
It's very beautiful white linen vintage agricultural shirt. Anyway, sorry, the point slightly, but I thought I'd dress up.
Thanks. It's appreciated. I was going to just talk about lockdown because what you were saying about, again, going back to like rural and urban, I think our experiences are very different, aren't they, of this time?
Yeah.
And perhaps that's only just becoming clear, but then something like the announcement last night that muddies everything kind of makes me just
Does that really mean?
It's like, what does anything mean now? Because my experience has been different to your experience in London, and your experience in London is going to be different to someone in Birmingham even. And I guess how we then come to terms with that, and what we all do now feels very. I sort of feel stranger today after last night than I did yesterday, when I was happily putting the exhibition on and thinking, like, this is my new life. And now we're sort of we're returning, aren't we? So, like, what does that mean for you today? Are you still making work? Are you still thinking? Your kind of objectives changing? Is what's happening?
I mean, I don't think I think I'd already, just prior to lockdown, I'd already gone through quite a process of slowing down my process anyway. The big changes that I can't get to, I haven't been going to my studio. It's just that bit too far to walk, but that might change this week. I think we really need to learn something from this time. I think it'd be a huge missed opportunity if we all rush back to where we were before. I think we need to slow down, start consuming less, and I think this connection between city and countryside is something that we need to be working on individually. As what our connection is, and I think it's one of the biggest questions for our time. How do we connect the natural, slow nature of things, of the natural world, with the speed at which we consume?
It fits into everything, doesn't it? How we eat and what we buy, and what.
All those things, but also going back to my childhood, when I think about harvest festivals we used to have at school, and they actually really meant something, because if the harvest failed, their livelihoods were affected. And I think there was that kind of spiritual connection with the land, which was more of a partnership than it is now. There's this idea now that we're just taking from the natural world, but we need to develop the idea that we're partnerships. There's a partnership in creation. So that's something I'm very interested in with my work, and that's sort of an ongoing question for me about how we work to create, where we are in creation. As creators, where are we in this creation? What do we need to create? How do we want to create it? How do we want it received in creation?
Well,
so kind of, big stuff, but no answers, but
No, lots. Well, I just want to thank you again for this, and it's really, really thought-provoking, and the work we're just like, we're so lucky to have it, and or rather the chickens are, and it's
been a pleasure
and joy. So it's been
thank you.
And
thanks for creating the opportunity as well.
Yeah,
great for so many artists.
Yeah, it's been lovely, hasn't it?